Hello and welcome to Mystery Monday number 34. This is your last Mystery Monday of the year, where our learning goal is to cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support an analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as make inferences and how we draw those inferences from the text, including where the text leaves matters uncertain. At the end of the story, you'll be asked to rate yourself on a scale of 1 through 4 related to your ability to draw those inferences. If you're at a 4, that means that you can draw inferences from the text. You're able to identify evidence the author uses to prove his or her point, and you're able to point out where the text leaves matters uncertain. You're also picking up on nuance, like sarcasm and irony. A 3 means that you can draw inferences from the text and point to the evidence that the author uses to prove his or her point, and you're able to look at where the text leaves matters uncertain. A 2 means that you can draw inferences from the text and the evidence, and you're able to identify the evidence the author uses to prove his or her point. And a 1 means you are unsure of how to draw inferences. Our story today is titled Some Uncertainty About the Call at 291 Bristol. There were at least 3 good reasons why Sean Hawks was not prepared to accept the incident at 291 Bristol as a break and enter. Not as a robbery either, or an assault, even though all of that had to be put aside for the moment while she looked after the young woman who'd called 911. Paige Kress was her name, 18 years old and by all indications genuinely traumatized. In Sean's mind, it was a heck of a thing to happen to a young college kid on her Christmas break, so she was now puttering about the huge kitchen at 291 Bristol, looking for the wherewithal to brew a pot of tea. Sean's standard response to trauma, illness, and global crisis. I was scared he was gonna... Paige's first words to Sean degenerated into moans as she wrapped her arms around herself tightly and rocked back and forth. He was here before. The guy, in the house, he had come through the tears. See, we're gonna move. Daddy's company got in some kind of trouble and he needs to... Paige had begun to hyperventilate. That's when Sean had left for the kitchen. She wanted to make some space for herself and the tea for all hands. 2 of the uniforms on her squad were sitting with Paige right now. One of them, the only other female member of the squad, a veteran of all 6 months, who had been the first officer on the scene. This same rookie, a month before, had investigated a report of 3 girls being stalked on campus by the junior college nearby. One of the 3 had been Paige Kress. The third cupboard door on the left of the triple sink yielded an electric tea kettle. Progress. Add that to the milk, Sean said aloud, and the dubious contents of that sugar bowl, and we're getting somewhere. Now what's needed is a nice Darjeeling, or maybe a Picot. The search went on. A second bank of cupboard doors presented an impressive array of serving dishes and baking tools, but no tea. She moved to the third. Actually, this was taking about as much time as she'd hoped it would. Paige, in Sean's opinion, needed some more time before telling her story again. The first time, between the sobs and fits of quivering, and even a near faint, Paige had told the officers how she had just stepped out of the shower when she heard. She was certain about this. She heard a sound in the hall. Wrapped only in towel, Paige had peeked out the door, but saw nothing. It was when she had turned back inside that she saw the intruder in the mirror. A short man, dressed all in black, carrying a painting. She'd screamed, locked the door, and called 911. Ah, gotcha. Sean's delight at finally finding some tea was short-lived. It was herbal tea, mint. In her opinion, that was as close to barbaric as one could get without resorting to coffee. This search for tea was becoming as bothersome as the case. Even the man in black had been easier to find. Paige had identified him as the real estate estimator who had been through the house the week before. He was now sitting in handcuffs in the back seat of a blue and white parked in the driveway. Sean herself had picked him up only a block away. She had to admit she disliked him immediately, probably because his black shirt was open to mid-chest, revealing a cross and a gold chain, a St. Jude medal, and, also in gold, a fist with middle finger raised in a rude gesture. He was short, dressed in black, and swaggerly. Not Sean's kind of person. Still, there had been no painting anywhere. Not that she'd expected to find one, even though the black Trans Am where she picked him up was his. As well, his story that he'd returned to the neighborhood to reevaluate his original estimate made sense enough. Paige's parents were selling their huge home, and he'd been called in on the same day they were leaving for a week of skiing. His first go-round, he claimed, had been too rushed. The place needed a closer look. He went on. Too many things were not working. The garage door opener, the burglar alarm, the carburetor. The house needed a thorough examination. Well, Sean exclaimed as she opened and closed the very last cupboard door. This is uncivilized. One cannot have a kitchen and not have tea. What do people do for... With a look of chagrin on her face, she stopped and peeked over her shoulder to see if anyone had seen her search. Some detective, she said, and walked to the sink. The set of canisters on the kitchen counter had labels clear enough to be read from anywhere in the room. Flour, sugar, coffee, tea. She peered out to the kitchen door just to be doubly sure that none of her squad had been nearby. Shaking her head in self-admonishment, she began to fill the kettle with water. Sean Hawks almost overlooked the obvious in her search for tea, but she hasn't been fooled by this case. What are at least 3 good reasons why she is not prepared to accept the incident as a break and enter, a robbery, or assault? So if you remember, there were 3 reasons to question the validity of this mystery. And this is one of them right here. The first time, between the sobs and fits of quivering, and even a near faint, Paige had told the officers how she had just stepped out of the shower when she was certain about this, she heard a sound in the hall. Wrapped only in the towel, Paige had peeked out the door, but saw nothing. It was when she had turned back inside that she saw an intruder in the mirror, a short man, dressed all in black, carrying a painting. Another clue, taken from later in the mystery, says this. Paige's parents were selling their huge home, and he'd been called in on the same day as they were leaving for a week of skiing. His first go-round, he claimed, had been too rushed. The place needed a closer look, he went on. Too many things were not working. The garage door opener, the burglar alarm, the carburetor. The house needed a thorough examination. And so given those 2 close readings, or at least highlights of text, that's 2 of the 3 reasons why she is not prepared to accept this incident as a break and enter, robbery, or assault. Does that change how you responded the first time? Sean's maternal instincts are readily apparent, so it must seem strange at the very least that Paige's parents would go away, leaving her alone in the house, with the burglar alarm not working, especially given the recent stalking incident on the campus. Moreover, if the man in black was breaking and entering, it seems highly unlikely that he would wear jewelry that might jingle. The strongest doubt of all, though, originates from Paige. If she had just emerged from the shower, the mirror in which she claims to have seen the man in black would have been fogged with water vapor. So I feel compelled to ask one more time, how would you change your answer to the final question now that you've seen the solution? First, I had you ask. Then I highlighted kind of 2 of the 3 sections where the answers lie. And now this, the solution. What did you miss? What might you add? And lastly here, according to this scale, where would you rate your ability to draw inferences? Are you at a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1? Once you've answered all the questions on the Edpuzzle video, you have earned your unit for this Mystery Monday at number 34. So that's all from me for now. Ciao for now.